Okay, so welcome to the On Helix, What Makes the Best Ecosystem for Digital Health session. I'm Aline Charpentier, Head of Innovation Support at One Nucleus, and delighted to be joined today by 4 leading European digital health ecosystem representatives. It is a great opportunity to hear about these ecosystems, of course, their demographics, the strengths or the specific initiative. But the real aim of this discussion is to highlight what we feel are the main enablers for digital health companies, for their technology development as well, and importantly, their adoption. And how the ecosystems themselves can support, sustain, and nurture at their own level, and maybe not further collaboratively and other wider group of network ecosystems. So without further ado, I'm going to invite my fellow panelists to introduce themselves and just say a few words about the background of the ecosystem they work for in terms of digital health, type of company and how it is structured. So if I may, I'm going to start with you, Bjorn.
Thanks, and thanks for inviting me to this talk. It's very delighted to be here. My name is Björn Arvidsson, and I am the managing director of a foundation called Stunds Life Science. We facilitate collaborations between public and private actors in order to create knowledge-based and sustainable growth. And we're located in Uppsala, which is very close to Stockholm in Sweden then. And Uppsala has a very strong tradition within life science with several globally competitive manufacturing companies, like for instance, Cytiva, Thermo Fisher, Fresenius Kabi, Galderma, and so on. In addition, we have more than 100 other life science companies where many originates from any of the 2 universities that we have. At those universities, we host more than 50,000 students in a city with only 200,000 inhabitants. And those universities are particularly strong in engineering, medicine, and pharmacy. In addition, Uppsala actually hosts several tech and digital companies. Together with Stockholm area, we have developed several strong unicorns within tech, like Skype, Klarna, Spotify, Mojang, and King, for instance. And however strong in life science and tech, they're still quite siloed actually, and the networks don't really converge yet as much as we hope to do. And within digital health, most competitive companies are today net doctor services, like for instance, we call them Kry in Sweden, but they're called Livy in markets like in the UK. And since a few years back, and I think it's from 2015, Sweden as a country actually has a very ambitious vision of being the country the best country in the world to utilize the value of e-health by the year of 2025. So we have at least 4 years to build on that. But it reflects actually a lot of the strategies where we want to digitally transform healthcare, making health data available, creating great possibilities and for new private companies within the field. And I think with the tradition and legacy within life science for many 100 years, and with the more modern successes with tech unicorns and this e-health vision, this is a great opportunity ahead actually for digital health in Sweden.
Thank you, Bjorn. And I think you already spotted a keyword, convergence, that we'll get back to. Janus, if you would like to introduce Scanbalt and digital health within it.
Yes, I'm Janus Pikani. I'm a chairman of Scanbalt, but also representing Estonian digital and life science community, being also board member of Tartu BT Park, which is a 20 years history private innovation coordinator in Estonia. Estonia being a small country, of course, we have quite a close community, and also we are participating and representing a cluster called Estonian Connected Health Cluster. So I'm wearing 2 hats. One is the viewpoint from Estonia, but also wider for Baltic Sea region, including several clusters from Germany, Sweden, Denmark, Poland, and also other Baltic countries, Latvia and Lithuania. So if I start from Estonia, then obviously it's now for the last 10 years it's known Estonia as being one of the leading hubs for for e-governance, as being the only country where we have e-voting system already for 15 years for both for local and national level elections. And also we have quite strong health data registering system, and also the genomics. 20% of Estonian population has been already genotyped, and the data is collected, coupled with health data into the Estonian genome bank, which is has been quite an important source for a number of developments. Lately, we have actually conducted a project which was aimed to implement digital and genomic data for picking up high-risk patients in cardiovascular and breast cancer. So the aim is to substitute the current screening models to primary screening based on genomic data. Estonia has also been known as one of the highest concentration of unicorn per population. We can say that Estonia has recently, for the last couple of years, been able to rise on digital startups quite a number, a high sum of investments per capita. It's actually third after US and Israel. So it means that today we have quite a luxurious situation where actually the money is looking for projects. So it's not unusual that you can raise money just based on pitch deck without having any product yet or prototype yet, which is quite similar to US, for example. What comes to the digital health and digital companies in health, this is has been not so well developed, but during Corona crisis now, of course, this has got quite a boost. And we see a number of new companies emerging on mental health. We have good examples here, which companies are going to come to the market with extraordinary products where you have a digital support system with comprehensive view on all mental health conditions and improving quality and efficiency of handling mental health patients and engaging mental health patients to the project, to the treatment course. And if we look for Scanbalt, of course, in Scanbalt recent year, so we have been focusing on European Common Health Data Space. This has been really the concern for most of our member clusters, and we have been able to bring together clusters also outside primary Scanbalt region. And last year we collected views for 35 clusters around Europe, forming a declaration that was submitted to the German presidency as an input to the white paper on the European health data space. So I think there is quite a bit going on, and we are happy to elaborate further on these topics during this panel.
Thank you, Jonas. Very impressive figures. I'll be honest, I didn't know, and you're right about how to join forces and bring the different regions together to tackle adoption. And again, we'll get back to it. Next, I'd like to ask Sohail from Eurasante to explain to us what is happening there. You're on mute, sorry. Sohail, you're on mute.
Now it's okay. Perfect. So, hello everybody, my name is Soel. So I'm working for Eurasante as an e-health and business consultant manager. So Eurasante is the economical development agency in the health and nutrition sector in Hauts-de-France region, so north side of our country. So I have mainly 10 years of relevant experience within the digital field. I worked for industrial companies, telcos, and now for more than 4 years within the health sector. So as an health and nutrition agency, we help a lot startups, big companies, research organizations, care establishments to develop their innovation activity within our own region. So that's why I will only talk about our scope, which is Hauts-de-France. But I can tell you that, for example, within France, we have several also unicorns which are valued a lot, like Alan, which is an insurance company. I can also tell you about Doctolib. I mean, I'm sure you may know of them, and also OVH, which is a hosting and data company. So those are the 3 main unicorns that we have in France, and we will have, I think, several more. Regarding the ecosystem and also the market, what I can say about France is that the market is quite huge. It's evaluated like around 4 billion euros for 2020 with a double-digit growth. So I think this is also interesting to know. Within our own region, so the Hauts-de-France, the market is evaluated to be around 145 million. And we have almost 110 companies for something like 1,000 employees within the region. So the Hauts-de-France region is the 3rd region in the health and in the e-health and data management. And historically, we have several main field of specialties. The first one is the hospital information system and hosting services. We have several companies that are huge companies within France and Europe that are working within this field of activity. We have also startups, a lot of startups that are working around AI and big data. And the third one will be more focused also around startups in the health and care pathways. So that's the overview of our own region. And from my perspective, what I can say is that we are experiencing a lot of startups that are coming and knocking at Eurasante's door in order to be able to promote their products and services. And that's our main goal within Eurasante.
Thank you, Chanel. I'm going to move out a bit south now and leave the floor to Montse to explain to us the vibrant Barcelona region.
Well, thank you, Aline, and hi, everybody. My name is Montse Davan. I am the Scientific and International Relations Director in BioCat. This is the organization that dynamizes the bioregion of Catalonia. Like you say, this is the northeast part of Spain. And it's the ecosystem around Barcelona. BioCat has been acting as this organization, a cluster organization, for 15 years now. And actually, the result of this dynamization is actually a contribution to this vibrant ecosystem that you mentioned. It has a strong base of science, life sciences, and health tech basis. Like also Bjorn mentioned, the life sciences in Barcelona is really interesting in terms of production in research centers and universities. We have 12 universities. We have about 89 research organizations as a whole, and the whole ecosystem has about 1,200 companies. Mostly biotech and medtech, but digital health is growing incredibly in the last years, and this is really has shifted our position as a top-notch life sciences cluster to a digital health or health tech cluster in Europe. And also it makes us rethink also the instruments and the support of this differentiated subsector that is growing incredibly, and also the policies that it involves. I also have some examples to share with you on that regard. Like I said, this rapid growth in digital health is a trend that has been confirmed year after year. And in large part, this success is due to increasing number of companies in this subsector that has been multiplied by 10 in the last years. So this increase is accompanied to several major rounds of financing, and the great acceleration also that many companies have experienced due to the digitalization of health and medical care in pandemic time. But so in the pandemic time, the investments in this subsector have been also enhanced and increased. So if, for example, if in 2010, the bioregion had about 20 companies, 10 years later, there are more than 200. So that is, like I said, multiplied by 10. And this increase also shows the youth of this subsector, which is about 87% made of startups, with about 119 million euros as a whole. So we have this report, this annual report that gathers this information and this data, and all the data that we will share later are gathered there. So like I said, the type of company is a young company. This is something that is evolving very rapidly here in Catalonia, in Barcelona and the area. Many of those companies do not have more than 10 workers. So this is really a young and very dynamic sector. I would say that they nurture from the strong technologies created at the level of the universities and the research centers, and also those large infrastructures like the Barcelona Supercomputing Center that is located in Barcelona. But many of the, and we also are building this digital innovation hub that has a strong focus also on health. So the main technologies that our companies use is artificial intelligence, of course, virtual reality, big data, augmented reality, etc., and 3D printing also, really a growing area here in Catalonia, in Barcelona. So like I said, most of this digital health map is made of micro enterprises or micro SMEs. We also have some medium and large companies also. We have one example, which is Dr. Alia, that was created in 2007. And this is one of the one of the clear success stories that we have in the sector. In 2016, it merged with Doc Planner, and 13 years after its founding, it has more than 225 employees. So, in Barcelona is also the international headquarters of one of the world leaders in telemedicine, which is Teladoc Health, established in 2018 through the acquisition of Advanced Medical. So this Teladoc Health today has more than 1,300 workers in the city. And everything talks about a booming investment despite the pandemic, like I said. And it's a spending sector. And the digital health startups, for example, raised 34.5 million euros in 2020. So it's seven times more than in 2016. So this is really amazing figures of that talk about this growth in Barcelona area. And I would say that the main driver of this growth is venture capital, with a very interesting international participation also being a key element of that. We have had some milestones last year, for example, Coa Health, a spin-off of Telefonica that offered digital solutions for mental well-being, closed the largest round of investment in digital health in history of the bioregion and the rest of Spain, with 30 million euros, for example. So with all of that, Barcelona has climbed to the 5th place in the ranking of European cities with the most important rounds in digital, behind London, Stockholm, Oxford, and Berlin. So that's not a bad at all place in Barcelona and the bioregion around. And that's just for starters. I would say that we have challenges, of course, and I'm sure that we're going to go through them in the session. But what I would like to say is that we are also connecting to a strong IT sector. And I think this is one of the main reasons why we have this boom in Barcelona. We have this strong IT sector and the technologies. And the challenge now is focusing to digital therapeutics and differentiating the products and facing the challenges of these new set of products and all the regulatory aspects and that involve, and the funding also that is diversified, can be addressed properly and provide the enablers as ecosystem that this kind of companies and this kind of subsector needs. So this is pretty much as a starters, but of course we will go through that later, I'm sure.
No, and that was a really good overview of what it is and also the different aspects we're going to cover and challenges. And I think you were finishing with the one I would like to start with and ask you about. So you all raised the fact that you come from a region that has very strong tech background, also mixed with good life sciences. Maybe the balance isn't exactly the same in all regions. And if I speak for my own part of the world, maybe it's more life sciences than tech. But the main issue I see with that is the need for strong convergence of technology. So digital health is such a breadth of technology. That's the device element, the IT element, the data element. You bring a bit of chemistry and biology around that. And so you need this strong expertise and mix-up of expertise, so convergence, which is where you drive and create innovation. And although everyone talks as it is a great thing to have, I'd like to hear your view of how this is working in your region and how your own ecosystem, so your own organization or the ecosystems themselves, are really supporting to nurture that, so nurture the convergence. And if I start with Janus this time, and then keep circling around to get your view.
Thank you, Aline. So you're absolutely right. The digital health and digital in life science means actually a lot of various parts which have to be bring together. So, that's why we see here this one main task is to facilitate collaborations, because obviously it's very complicated to collect all expertise in one company or even in one region. Of course, depending on the size of the region, like if we compare ourselves like Estonia to Uppsala or Swedish region where you have Stockholm, Uppsala, bioregion. This is different size, or Catalonia, but still, I think we have all elements if we look to the wider sort of area, Scanbalt or even Europe, because we don't know that nowadays there is no borders if we look to that actually drive to get expertise and talents. And one way to overcome this is to cooperate, to find ways how to make 1 + 1 not 2 but 4. And cooperation is one of these things, and this is main aim what we are driving and here and trying to facilitate, try to find ways how to bring together different players. And the other thing is, of course, how it has been supported by this financing system, not only the investments to a company, but also how the new solutions are reimbursed by the healthcare service financing organizations, how the new models. And I think if we are looking at the population changes or demographic changes, what we are facing already, and it will be more and more drastic and dramatic if we look to the next coming years. We know already today that like the 90% or 80-90% of financing on healthcare goes to 10% of the multi-morbid and chronic disease patients. which actually means that the only way is the care integration. And here, the main question or conundrum, how to develop financing models that support this care integration. And here I see a lot of space for also for digital companies to, because if we have data that can be used real time, then we can of course also model our payment system and bring the notion of high value care into the practice and in reality. Because today I think it's more like buzzwords which everybody's using, but there is no good solutions. So yeah, our main aim is to tackle these main points and again collaborations.
No, that makes sense, and you make a very valid point with collecting the right data and evidence to make the business case for these technologies to be adopted. I guess what I'd be curious about, and maybe hearing from the others, is it could be at the company level, but it could also be at the academic or university level. You know, we all know they tend to work really in silo. I mean, again, maybe in my own region, this is how it works. Or even science facts sometimes are a bit fragmented. You would have the life science one and a tech one. So do you have views of how co-location, geographical co-location can support that? Maybe other elements to support technology convergence is the demographic of who is coming in these companies. Is it a younger generation who may be a bit more, I don't know, used to or open to that type of convergence and collaboration? So I don't know if you have examples or view, Sohail, in Lille?
Related to digital,
to support better collaboration and convergence between tech and life science, for example?
For our side, what we bring as an economical development agency is really the expertise, because we are at the center of those ecosystems like research laboratories, care establishments, startups, some people that have innovative projects but who don't know how to develop them and how to nurture their innovation because they do it by their own. So we are at the middle of all those types of stakeholders, and what we bring is the expertise to them. Like, we propose networking, matchmaking, because we think collaborative working is better than working in silo. So that's our main objectives. And regarding the digital aspect of that, for my perspective, I think digital is really products and services, and we will see a really high trend going towards the service for the care pathways. So the goal to all of those technologies that we are seeing in development within our own region, gathering data, IoTs, big data, and so on. Their main goal is to make to promote efficiency in the care pathway. That's one of the main goals. To promote prevention, we have lots of projects that are tech projects that are aiming towards chronic diseases. To treat also, that's also one of their objectives, and to enhance the care model that we have in France. And I'm sure it's the same in the other countries that we have in the panel. And in my opinion, data is key, but another subject to be tackled is the business model around the data. And in France, and I'm sure it's the same in the other countries, and it's the same in Europe, I think, we have lots of regulatory barriers that could be seen as a pain point for some of the startups that are gathering data, because they want to sell those data, but it's not something that you can do because those data are related to health, to people, and it's quite controlled. So yeah, that's my view. And we as a development agency, we are really there to make those convergence between all those actors around the ecosystem, and not only within our region, but also we are also targeting other countries and other regions within France to come and to see our ecosystem and to implement their projects, because we think collaborating in an international way is also one of the way to develop and to promote innovation.
Thanks. So actually you took convergence to another level, which I really like. It's convergence of all the different stakeholders, so all the value chain as well as technology. And that's, again, a very good point. Montse, do you have anything you'd like to add on this? How you enabling as a cluster, as an ecosystem, this convergence of different stakeholders, how you make them talk to each other, because it's such a wide range of them.
Well, actually, that's exactly what you say. We try to promote this connection. We act, and I like that you mentioned, I mean, you refer to this word too in one nucleus, to be connectors among our stakeholders, but also at the international level, which is the only way. Because the transformation of health and with a digital focus is global. It's not only European health challenges, but it's global. And the pandemics that was referred by Danos at the beginning has obviously been one of the major triggers of this realization, but actually it is a global challenge that we have with aging societies, with chronic diseases, with workforce shortages, with sustainability of the health systems. So everything can be addressed from the power of digital health. And our commitment as a cluster organization like yours, you mentioned that also from Eurasante point of view, it's to provide our own programs and our own resources to provide these this connection. For example, we have some programs that have been running for years, but is now they're shifting a little bit towards this, like this Crash Barcelona accelerator that we have been running for years with partners from Boston, or the D-Health program, the digital health program that D-Health Barcelona, that is focused in training or upskilling and reskilling the experts from the sector on those gaps that we identify, for example. So this is one, some of the things. And we also actively perform a scouting on the portfolio of projects emerging from these startups and also from the technology centers and the research organizations, and try to promote this from a business development perspective, to look for investors, for corporates at local and international levels. So this is looking for these connections. And of course, we can rely on this network of, for example, hospitals that perform clinical trials themselves, and that can be under our regulation, the ones that can manage these electronic data that are really the information that everybody has to take care of, and the interoperability problems that they have, how we can help them face them. And that's, we can act at different points of action, or different perspectives. And this is what we try to do. Of course, there are areas in which we can't generate that impact, that those, we advise the government, for example, on which instruments and tools should be also put in place from the administration perspective, since we are in between the ecosystem and the government, who have this mandate of identifying challenges and providing or suggesting solutions. And we also advised for the creation of this deep tech fund, because the deep tech is at the origin of this transformation, and this is really disruptive. If we are able to accelerate and scale up this, we are going to accelerate also the transformation of the health system. So this is what we do mostly, but from the perspective that the challenges are global, of course, it has to be seen from the international collaboration perspective, and there are instruments that we can use European funding that can also be accessed from countries outside the European Union. And that is really powerful, since we all have this digitalization as one of the main indications to follow for the next years. So yeah, we are trying to cope with all those requirements and provide the opportunities and resources whenever possible.
Thanks, Monse, and we'll get back to this global versus local, because I think it's a very important topic in general, but especially for digital health. Bjorn, do you have a comment around the convergence element and maybe on this technology side, if that's something closer to Uppsala's question, how are you seeing that evolving if you have an exciting new generation of people coming into digital health?
Yeah, definitely. I think as a starter, when I joined Stunts 2 years ago, approximately now, I actually met with a lot of companies in Uppsala and asked them about what their major challenges was. And as you can imagine, the small companies, their major challenge was funds, of course, having money. That's the thing that they think about 24 hours a day. But in the larger companies, they actually said that competences is their major challenge, and to make sure to have a good skill supply. And I asked them, what kind of competences or and so on, and they didn't really have a clue, actually. And I think that's one of the challenges today, is that very few companies actually know what kind of competences they will need in 5 years. While 30 years back, it was quite easy to understand that we would need the same competences as we have today. But now we realize that that is not the case in a digitized world. And I think that's important to remember, and we can't just digitize something analog and think that we will continue to be the world leading or pioneering. And digital competences are quite a modern thing, actually. We only had smartphones since 2007 and so on, and so there are probably more younger people, at least, that have these competences than older people. What I think we need, and what actually is between the lines of what the larger companies said, is we need these kind of cross-disciplinary understandings. We need people with maybe kind of not multiple educations, but the kind of combined educations, more modern ones that fit better to the world we live in. And I think also, that convergence comes with a conflict. You get two worlds together somehow, but it doesn't have to be a challenge, but we need to overcome it somehow. And I think there are some dilemmas in this. For instance, digital competences is something that is attractive in every sector nowadays and in every part of the world. So how can we make then health or life science attractive for people with digital competences? First, to get them to work in the already established companies, and second, how can we get entrepreneurs with tech or digital competences to see health applications as an interesting sector to move into? I think also this leads to talent attraction. We all think about this. How can we attract people? How can we work in Uppsala? We work very closely with the municipality. We work closely with the county. We work closely with the universities and so on, to have the same story and try to promote the region as being an interesting innovation district and so on. But I think also in terms of convergence, the entrepreneurs from life science and entrepreneurs coming from tech are very different from each other. At least in Sweden, entrepreneurs in life science are often coming from academia. It's often, a professor or a researcher that come up with something in their lab and they commercialize it, and they come from that world. And that kind of logics, while the entrepreneurs from tech are more fast moving and are more like the traditional view of an entrepreneur. I think funds and investing is also very different. In life science, you have very long-term investments. It's very large amount of money, and it's long between the milestones. While in tech and digital, it's much faster, and you expect to get your money back much faster, and so on. I think also in terms of, I think Måns touched upon it, maybe it was about the regulatory kind of, environment you're in. If you work with health, it's very highly regulated, and people coming from life science, they're good at working with regulations. They're very kind of reactive towards that. While people coming from other sectors, they're not as used to these regulations and might see it as very cumbersome. So how do you converge these worlds and making it into an interesting mix of people where you actually trust each other and can work together to use the benefits from all of these worlds? And I think we have a good example. I just heard the other week from the company Cytiva that we have in Uppsala. They did did some new innovations in terms of digital transformation, what they're doing, and they actually used competences from the telecom sector, which is not often the case. Otherwise, they often want people coming from life science to do it, even if they want a digital solution to it and so on. So they're kind of picky, but in this one, they said it was very good to have people coming from another sector and bring that competences into life science. And other things we do is that we're trying to build a completely new district where we together with a real estate developer, we're trying to build what we call a district for life-changing solutions, where we want to attract both life science companies and digital companies, and hopefully we can make it into you know, that there's a lot of cross sections. There's a lot of it's easy to meet with other people and share in between the two different, you know, worlds, so to say. And I think for all of us that are in this conversation, we all work as some kind of facilitators for collaborations. We need to understand all these differences between these worlds so that we can bring them together. Because if we only understand one of the worlds, you know, we will not be successful.
Yes, understanding and making the different stakeholder understanding. As you said, we love to have tech investor, but they need to understand the return on investment are much longer.
Yeah.
I suspect that the current climate and pandemic brought more attention to what is the life science, you know, industry in general, and so that's probably helping. So I'm conscious of time. I'd like just to get back to a point, because obviously it's important to have the right skills, the right investments, the right technology and innovation support. But you need to understand your market and the adoption, and as Sohail mentioned, the business models. And I think it's not a clear cut here where you have your own ecosystem and you need adoption within your ecosystem. It's a global world as well. So I'd like to get your view of how you balance the work you're doing to get the adoption within your ecosystem, so within your country. Usually this is how that would work. So maybe doing lobbying or understanding it, to balance that with the international support, because an individual European country usually is not enough as big as a market as it could be than reaching out to North America, for example. So I'm sure you do both, but just would like to get your view on how you balance lobbying to get better adoption within your country region and the internationalization support. Sohail, can I start with you?
Yes, sure. So within our own region or country, what we do in order to get adoption is really, for example, for care establishments. So we really go and see them. For example, the director of a nursing home or the director of a big hospital, for example, in Lille, and try to see where they have some issues and how technology could answer those issues. And because we know the ecosystem, they trust us, and that's why we work really closely with care establishments within our own region, and we have meetings each month. For example, with CHU of Lille, which is one of the biggest hospitals in France. We also promote their needs by creating calls for projects. For example, we have done one with CHU of Lille, which gathers more than 140 applicants from the national ecosystem. So we had several big companies, but also startups and also researchers. And by doing that, we bring innovation to care establishment, and we make those two worlds work more closely. Because when I discuss with the startups, his main issue is how can I sell my product or my services to hospital, because in France the system is quite closed, and you cannot go to an hospital and have a rendezvous with, for example, a buying department. So we try to make those issues, to erase those issues by doing this matchmaking between the startups and companies that are having products that could answer some needs, and on the other side, the care establishment. So when I talk about care establishment, it's private and public, big and small, and also nursing homes and so on. And they have lots of needs and they don't know how to look after the market because that's not their job. And that's why we are there to make the convergence. So that's what we do at the regional or local level in France. And regarding the international aspect, we work a lot with European projects because we think working within European projects is one of the ways to help our startups and companies to develop abroad. We've worked around I think more than 20 projects, and some of them are dedicated to digital technology. So that's one of the main point to address. And the other one, we work also a lot with countries, like for example, we go in trade fairs, for example, in Dubai for life sciences, and we help our companies to promote their product because we, for example, buy spaces within a trade fair, and we help them go and try to see what's the market within Middle East, what's the market within USA or Southeast Asia. And because we have some people within our own team that have the good competencies to go and to seek those informations, and we provide those information to those startups so that when they arrive in the exhibition, they have all the information that they need in order to prospect within those geographical areas. So that's what we do on our daily basis within Eurasante.
Thank you, Sven. And well, I like the very early stage need analysis with care providers. That's obviously a very good approach. Monse, the global versus local, where do you think you're adding most value?
Well, actually, what we look for is really situating or positioning the bioregion at a global level from this local perspective. We are a region and we do not have all the competencies or the let's say the possibilities to regulate at a member state level. So that is also bring us to some opportunities to look for international relations and international collaboration to develop whenever we have some capabilities at this level, and we can follow the lead of the European Union, the European Commission, mainly regarding the electronic records, the data management, data governance, etc. But it's true that both at Spanish and at Catalan level, there are some limitations, some challenges that this really pose a threat, and pose a threat for the advancement or the deployment of these possibilities. This is also happening in other countries. So I think that it's really important that from the at least from the European perspective, we can have a common advancement for those same challenges, for example. And we have our own, at the regional level, like other regions in Europe also, our own instruments or tools to advance in the, like I mentioned, in the interoperability, or this is a difficult name for me to pronounce, but actually so the capability to share the information among the different components of the system. This is important to have a perspective from other regions that are already doing that ahead, like for example in Estonia, other countries that are doing this. It's imperative to collaborate at that level, to share these experiences, these good practices, and be able to advance in this line more and more, and also for the perspective of our own companies that can find in these other regions the possibility for their products or their collaborations to develop their solutions and then advance also at that level. We are also looking at other regions in the world. There are some regions in, of course, Asia that is doing amazing advancements in all areas and very rapidly. And but of course, we have to go back again to our framework, our regulatory framework that is in some sense different for regions and countries and at the European level. However, of course, we know that there's this proposal at the European level to go for a single market, and this is going to be really important for all of us, with the same concerns that everybody has: the privacy, cybersecurity, data quality. Only through collaboration and through benchmarking with other regions and countries, we can really tackle these challenges. And I think that was mentioned also by Janusz at the beginning. So really connecting to other ecosystems. Well, actually, this is the perspective that the post-pandemic world is advancing in the innovation, sometimes in the cloud even, connecting ecosystems at a global level. And this is the only way we can just accelerate our own ecosystem. So this is the only way we understand this advancement for us. I would say that we really look for these good examples, like and Janusz and Bjorn, and also in Eurasante. So I know that we have been and also One Nucleus looking for collaborations with you, because you are in some things ahead and we can be ahead in others, and this is the only way we can just you really meet the needs that we have all in place in these areas. So I was trying to mention also some of our policies at the regional level. We have this Smart Catalonia strategy, which is a set of policies that are really devoted to the advancement of all the areas that have to do with digitalization. And in this big policy that we have as a region, health is one of the main areas also. And we have electronic records centralized, at the regional level. And we are really ahead in some of those aspects, really looking for the regulation to be put in place to be able to deploy all the possibilities in this area.
Thank you, Montse. I think you summarized very well the opportunities and challenges of Europe as sharing good practices, but then the fragmentation that need to be overcome, but I'm sure it will. Bjorn, on the global versus, general, and that's fine, if that's same, you can.
Definitely. I think that, I worked for a long time at a global pharma company. And it was quite obvious over the times that in the beginning, they had, part of the portfolio was, of course, with partnering and licensing and some collaborations with research institutes all around the world. And they had, 20,000 in-house researchers, and they tried to do most of it in-house. But after a few years, it was quite obvious that even if you have 20,000 researchers, that is not, sufficient to be well leading in terms of, the whole community of researchers in the world. So being out there, partnering, collaborating with the major research institutions everywhere in every corner of the earth was more important. So they actually decreased the research and development department in-house, and they increased the partnering. And I think it's the same thing with digital, digital is global and all the value chains are digital. So, for any kind of company organization, you don't have to be in the same building anymore to be able to build something. And I hope that, if we can, share more data in general, first you make it available in your own markets and locally and so on, so that companies can generate evidence. And then hopefully also even companies can share data in between with the, their own belief that they are better at converting that into a value so that they can accelerate their own development. I think that's an interesting opportunity for the future, and to be able to do that you need to have the good network and good your tentacles all over the world with the most prominent institutions or most prominent companies or competencies all over the world. So I think that's the future of the companies in digital health.
Thank you, Bjorn. I would tend to agree. So, same on the sort of local versus global, and maybe in light of what you mentioned about Estonia being really advanced already in terms of digital usages, does that mean that it's just focusing more inward, or is it trying to reach out to more international markets because of the expertise you developed?
For us, the local market in Estonia is negligent. So it's a so small country. So all new companies or new solutions that have been developed is from the beginning is meant to be global, or they fail. So because you have to survive, you have to be global, especially in digital. And that's why what we are now doing is we try to bring in, because although we have a great infrastructure here, if we look to the digital governance, but still we need to see what is the best practices that other countries. So we have been organizing a lot of seminars during last year. Virtual seminars are easy to arrange, to bring knowledge to the local players to see what is happening and what kind of solutions that would be have prevalence in the next future, and what the other markets will want to see. So this is one thing, and the other what we are also trying to do is to facilitate the companies to reach to other markets, or the closer to Europe or further, which European funds have been a great help. During last funding period, we have run a couple of projects where we have been supporting companies to reach out to markets like India or South Korea. And also what we are strongly believe, we believe strongly is to actually enable this global marketplace. We need standardization, we need taxonomies, same taxonomies. We need also data sharing, interoperability, which is a magic word that we need, because otherwise that is not possible to easy and efficiently to scale up these services to other countries. So these are, and this is what we see now. Common data space activities, and we can actually see that there is a lot to become in the next few years.
Thank you, Yannis. And I think that leads really nicely to the conclusion. You all demonstrated the very strong value of ecosystem for supporting the emergence of technology, raising money, putting them in front of the market. But ultimately, what we want is just a global coverage, it's a global digital market. And as you say, harmonization of data, interoperability, etc. And maybe best way to do that would be to bring the idea of having a digital ecosystem that we could all be part of that. So I'm in. I don't know if you all are in it too. And yes, of course we are. Thank you. So I'd like to take that positive note to thank you all for your really great insights. Also to add that following your contribution, obviously you can be contacted on the Helix platform. So anyone who has interest in reaching out to your wonderful region and discussing further this exciting topic, or reaching out to your companies, feel free to. And a big thank you to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great conversation. Thank you.